Hola, bienvenidos a Warp Talks. Yo soy Alejandro Franco y estoy muy contento de presentarles mi más reciente conversación con un héroe personal. Él es Tom Morello, uno de los guitarristas más inventivos de todos los tiempos. Por supuesto, lo ubicamos por el proyecto madre del que ha formado parte tanto tiempo, que es Rage Against the Machine, también por proyectos subsecuentes en estas superbandas de las que también pues ha tenido una historia muy particular, como Prophets of Rage o como Audioslave, y sus trabajos solistas como The Night Watchman, o también lo que ahora está haciendo con su propio nombre, que de hecho ese es el propósito de la conversación. Platiqué con Tom Morello acerca de este disco que saca como solista, en donde lo acompañan algunos músicos que son sus amigos o que ha compartido escenario con ellos, como Bruce Springsteen o como Eddie Vedder o Phantogram. Es muy interesante este material, pero también es muy interesante conocer su historia. Tom, además de músico, es un activista político, estudió en Harvard, pues lo que tiene que ver con las ciencias políticas, y de verdad es un hombre que ha visibilizado muchas problemáticas, no solamente de la Unión Americana, sino del mundo. Ojalá que la disfruten. Tom, it's a great honor to have you on the show. We're big fans of your work. We played your music the whole time from all your projects, and we're so excited because your work in music is so important, but also your work in the social matters. It's as relevant as your work as a producer and as a musician, and of course as a guitarist. So welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. It's always a great pleasure to talk with my Mexican friends, fans, and comrades.
It's obvious that 2020 wasn't the year that we were expecting. I was expecting to see you guys with Rage Against the Machine in a couple of your shows, but I noticed that you focus that energy in this new album. This new album is amazing. Your features are great, but the songs and the spirit and the intention, for me, it's the most important. Tell me all about this new album.
Sure. The album is called The Atlas Underground Fire, and it's a collaborative record which features a wide variety of artists who I did collaborations with around the world. While I was trapped here in my studio in Los Angeles over the course of many months, I had the good fortune to collaborate with Bruce Springsteen in New Jersey, Eddie Vedder in Seattle, Bring Me the Horizon in Brazil and the UK, Chris Stapleton in Nashville. Mike Posner recorded our song Naraka while he was scaling Mount Everest. Damian Marley in Jamaica, Refused in Sweden, and Sama Abdulhadi in Palestine. So even though this was a record that I made alone, I was able to sort of forge a global community of musical comrades as really a lifeline. Like it was a time of a lot of anxiety and fear when we were making this record, when I was making this record with these friends, and to be able to escape for a couple of hours every day remind myself that I'm a musician, even when the outside world is looking pretty crazy, was very healing.
Yeah, I only can imagine, the experience to be working with these amazing musicians all around the world doing this particular work that probably it couldn't have been done before because all of you were very busy, right?
Right, exactly. Like everybody's stuck at home on their Zoom, and that's the thing. It really was unique, and from Chris Stapleton and I, we talked on Zoom like for a couple of hours before we even began like trying to write a song, just sort of about our experience of what it's like to try to keep a family sane and healthy and keep everybody alive. To Sama, who, in Palestine, she's a great young Palestinian DJ, and we were recording our song while Israel was bombing Palestine. And so, like, her experiences there, to Bruce Springsteen and Eddie Vedder, two of my, two legendary rock heroes, we made the song Highway to Hell came about in a very unusual way. I played with Bruce Springsteen for about 6 years on and off with the E Street Band, and we were in Perth, Australia, the home of Bon Scott of AC/DC, and I paid my respects at his grave, and then went back to the hotel, and I saw Bruce, and I said, "Do you think that the E Street Band and AC/DC might have anything in common?" And he was like, "I never really thought about that before." I'm like, "Well, if you want to, think about it." And we began rehearsing Highway to Hell at sound checks. And then when we were in Melbourne, we were playing a show in a huge soccer stadium, and Eddie Vedder happened to be in town with a solo show of his own. and I knocked on Bruce's dressing room. I said, "We are in Australia, where AC/DC is king and Highway to Hell is the national anthem. Why don't we open the show with Highway to Hell with Eddie Vedder?"
Fuck.
And he was like,
"That's amazing."
And he was like, "Fuck, that's amazing." And anyway, so we did, and the place, well, people lost their minds. And as I was making this album, the Atlas Underground Fire record, with a lot of these exciting young collaborators sort of pushing my music into the future, I was like, I want to make a song with some of my brothers. I want to make one of the AC/DC's Highway to Hell is one of the greatest rock and roll songs of all time. I want to make that song with two of the greatest rock and roll singers of all time, Bruce Springsteen and Eddie Vedder.
And I imagine that there's a particular story behind the recordings of the other songs of the album.
Sure.
But also you have this other side that these songs are about something.
Yes.
These songs are,
yes,
you know, are there because of an intention, that,
yes,
that a message that I think that message you are delivering that message since the beginning of your
right.
of your career, or
right.
at least with Rage Against the Machine and Now the Slave and all those other projects. What's the voice behind this new album?
Yeah, well, the voice behind this record is, I really believe in order for music to be compelling, it has to be authentic. And so this was a time, great political turmoil here in the United States, environmental turmoil around the world, and this global pandemic that caused a lot of depression and anxiety. And I wanted the record I didn't want to pretend that this record was only going to be about Guatemalan labor unions or something like that. It needed to be about what was really happening. So there are some of the songs, like the Bring Me the Horizon song is called Let's Get the Party Started, which is on the surface is about just that. But it's really about when you're faced with the kind of a world which is you cannot even deal with and is so depressing that sometimes you go so crazy you can actually kill yourself. But there have to be rebel anthems on my records. There have to be rebel anthems. And on this one, the song with Grandson, Hold the Line, is just about that. It's about have principles and stick with them no matter what the cost. And that means individually and collectively, as people fighting for a better world. And then the Damian Marley song, The Achilles List, I took that title from an old Planet of the Apes movie, where it was the one where the apes have their revolution and overthrow the people, and they referred to the apes who were dangerous to the society as they put them on a thing called the Achilles List, because they were the ones that had a chance of hitting the Achilles heel of the society. And I thought to myself, that's a list that I'd like to be on.
That's amazing. Is the track with Ana Tijoux from Chile part of the album?
No, it's not. The track for Ana Tijoux came out. Lightning Over Mexico was a song that was very, very important to me. I wrote that. I actually wrote the lyrics. I played a show for the Missing 43 with Calle 13 years ago. We did a benefit show for the parents of the missing.
Yeah, I remember that.
And it was an honor to meet them and to play. And backstage that night, I wrote those lyrics on a napkin. And it took a while for that song to come to fruition, but Ana Tijoux provided a beautiful verse for that one. And I wanted to do that song in their memory and as a gesture of solidarity. Lightning Over Mexico. It came out on the EP, the Catastrophist EP, which came out a few months ago, which was a collaboration with Bloody Beetroots and Ana Tijoux.
What's your feeling? It's a very weird and open question, but what's your feeling of what is going on in the world right now? Because it seems that the big establishment is falling down. There's an awakening of consciousness from my perspective. I don't know how do you feel it?
Yes.
But you have been working on these projects, The Night Watchman, of course, Rage Against the Machine. You were saying, fuck the machine, and now the machine is fucked.
Yes.
for real.
Yes.
So what do you feel nowadays in these strange moments of the humanity?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that gives me hope, and there are a lot of challenges before us, and will our civilization continue in the face of sort of the environmental challenges and the political challenges and the racist challenges? But the one message that I will just say over and over again, that's been a theme of all of my bands and all of my interviews, is that the world is not going to change itself. That is up to you. And that history is not something that happens. History is something that you make. And whenever the world has changed for the better in progressive ways, in radical ways. It's been people no different than anyone listening to this right now who have been the people who changed it. You may think that your life is just like Instagram or video games or working for like, you're the one that changes it. It's never been different than that. It's people who have had no more power, courage, money, influence, creativity than anyone listening to this. It's a matter of standing up in your place and time and aiming for, unapologetically, aiming for the world you really want.
I need to ask you this. When was the first time that you took a guitar?
I owned a guitar at 13, and I took 2 guitar lessons, and it made me not want to play music ever again. So I picked up the guitar again at 17 when I discovered punk rock music, and that began my journey that led to this interview today.
Yeah, but I imagine that you took and perceived the guitar as something different as those lessons, right? Because the
Very
way
different.
that you decided to play it, it's
Yeah.
unique and it's very different. It seems that you were trying to do something really special or different, or at least have fun.
Yeah, at least have fun. So yeah, when I took 2 lessons, and I wanted to learn songs by Kiss and Led Zeppelin, and they wanted to teach me scales and how to tune the guitar. I thought that was so boring. I was not at all interested in it. And when I began playing at 17, I was determined to not learn anything from I was in a band before I knew how to play a chord. I was just like, we're in a band and the guitars make some noise, that noise will be the song. You know what I mean? It was that spirit of punk rock music where I don't need lessons. I don't need a good guitar. I don't need any of that. I just need a point of view. And that was really what it was. And from that day to this, I now, in between then and now, I have practiced guitar and learned some chords and learned a few notes along the way. But that initial spark of wanting to be creative for the sake of this expression without rules is what still remains.
About rules, I suppose it's very different when you are working with a band and when you are working on your own. Mm-hmm. For example, for this new album, which are the main differences on the process, on the creative process?
Yeah. Well, with this new album, it's a bit of both. I mean, there's I love the thing that's great about solo artists is you get a purity of vision. You get to know, like, that's exactly what they mean. They decide the album cover and the lyric, and it's one vision. The great thing about bands is chemistry, where you're able to play off of each other and create something that none of you would have imagined on your own. I love both those situations, and I've made a lot of records in both those situations. With the Atlas Underground Fire record, it's a bit of both. Like, it's a solo record in that my guitar leads the way. The vision of the overall record is mine, but each of the individual songs is like being in a new band, where there's like I'm completely open to the direction that it might take, and my guitar, like I'll send 4 or 5 riffs to a collaborator, to Fantagram or to Damian Marley, and I'll just say, which one are you feeling? Any of these? If not, I'll send 4 or 5 more, and they might be, I like riff 3, and here's an idea I have back, and all of a sudden we're on a journey that's not decided by me, it's decided by us. And so that's why one of the highlights of making these Atlas Underground records is trusting in both your own personal vision of what the overall record can be, but the individual collaborative process of each artist.
Are you planning to play this album live?
No, there's no plans to. I mean, first of all, they're not planning to play any live music for a little while, but there's no plans to tour with this.
You decided with Rage Against the Machine, you decided to postpone the tour until people can be real together, right? You put this statement that I actually love, because I mean, there's no other way to attend a Rage Against the Machine concert from my perspective.
I'm with you there. Yeah, I mean, we moved it back 1 year, then we moved it back to 2022. So hopefully, spring of 2022, we'll be able to have rock concerts.
Yeah, I hope so. Also. And then I want to ask you, I know that we have a few minutes before this ends, but it's my appreciation that we're in your studio right now, and I'm seeing a picture. Is that Bruce Springsteen?
Yeah, that's me and Bruce. I'm not sure where we are in the world. It might actually be in Australia, if possible.
And I can notice that you're still a fan of music.
Oh,
not only a creator in music, but also a fan of music, and you're open to different genres. Which is your way of or of music consumption or discovering?
Yeah, I mean, I poke around on Spotify a lot, but I also have been turned on to new artists by my kid. I have a 10-year-old and 11-year-old boy, and they're always listening to music, which is sometimes surprisingly great, you know. And I'll be like, "What is that you're listening to?" And some of it I don't like, but some of it I do. So that's another way as well. But when I was working on these songs, there were some artists that I was very interested in working with. Again, I'd worked with Fantagram, I'd worked with Grandson, but I really wanted to work with Refused. I really wanted to work with Sama Abdulhadi. She's like a really tremendous young Palestinian DJ, and because I knew that they were going to get me out of my safety zone, you know. Like, I'm very confident in my rock and roll. I'll tell you the story with Sama. So I sent her, you know, a bunch of my normal heavy metal Black Sabbath riffs that I send around to everybody, and she's like, "I like these, but I don't know what to do with these." I'm like, "Okay, thank you for your honesty. Like, why don't you start the conversation? You send me, like, with no rules. Don't think about rage or audio.
Send me something.
Just send me something." And see, and she sent me this 8.5-minute kind of like Middle Eastern trance track, which I was just like, it was just really beautiful. I'm like, but I thought, what do I do with this? I thought, you know what? I'm going to like lean into it. So all I did was I put the headphones on, closed my eyes without any preparation, and just played. And then I did that a second time. Then I did that a third time. And I just sent her those 3 takes of just improvisational expression. And then she crafted it into a phenomenal, so it's the song that ends the record. It's called On the Shore of Eternity. And that's the, like, sort of the openness to collaboration, openness to chemistry that were some of the wonderful surprises that happened all over this record.
I just read you got inspired by a Kanye West interview about recording some ideas, vocals, etc. And then you started to record your guitar on your iPhone.
Yes, I mean, here's the thing: is like I have a studio, but I don't know how to run it. And there's normally there's an engineer that works it. They only let me touch the volume knob. That's the only one that I'm allowed to touch. And so it appeared that I was not going to be able to record music for a year, and that was just unacceptable. But fortunately, I ran across a Kanye interview where he said, you know, he recorded the vocals for a couple of his big records on the voice memo of his phone. And I was just like, you can do that? And so I did. And the guitar sounded great. And I just started, you know, emailing them to my guitar tracks to engineers and producers around the world. And that was the beginning of the Alessandro on Fire record. But 2, it was like a mental health lifeline to know that I can still be a musician during a time where it felt like it was going to be impossible.
That's amazing. Thanks a lot for this talk about your new album, Tom. It's a great honor to have you on the show.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. And again, I'd like to say just a huge thanks to all of the fans and friends and comrades in Mexico from day one who've been so supportive of Rage Against the Machine, of Audio Slave, of the Night Watchman, of my work. And it's something that I never take for granted, and I've had some of my greatest music, Prophets of Rage 2, some of my greatest musical highlight moments in Mexico, and I hope to have more.
We love you, brother. Thanks a lot.
I love you too, man. Thanks. Cheers. Peace.
Cheers.